สวัสดีท่านวิทยากรและผู้เข้าร่วมอบรมทุกท่านนะครับผมวิทยาวัฒน์ผ่องญาตินะครับเป็นพิธีกรในวันนี้นะครับขอต้อนรับทุกท่านเข้าสู่การอบรมนะครับวันที่5ของงาน EV Hackathon โดย
Welcome
หัวข้อของการ
all
อบรมในวันนี้
participants to our trainings today. Today is the 5th day and we are going to talk about the challenge, opportunity and conversion and trends. So let me start it now. I'd like to ask so I can, how much time do I have? 90 minutes. So at the end of the speech, that would be Q&A. I would like to spend 45 to 60 minutes, 30 minutes would be Q&A. So I'll do it in Thai. Unless you have English questions, I would answer in Thai or English. My name is Pariphat Buranasin. I am an engineer, but my career path, I am in financial and investment for over 20 years. And also I have been practiced my engineering field. I have experience. 30 years ago, I was in electric industry. And also I used to work at the power plant on financial and investment and control management. And I also work on my asset management. 10 years ago, I was a consultant for many organizations, especially for consumption, also in the arena of industry. Currently, I am a consultant of battery cell and battery pack in China. And I have an opportunity to work at the Parliament, Thai Parliament, on EV conversions and electric vehicles. I have been working with EMC, and I have been a committee members in different organizations. All of this is from my experience and my field, especially on the electric vehicles. I know that all of participants would pay attention to these topics because even the government subsidize the policy and make it appeal to the public as conducting the policy. And also I would like to share about the current situation, and I would like to categorize it in 5 types. So you're probably familiar with EV, but I would like to mention that electric vehicles, why we have to work on this. So I would like to talk about EV conversion, but I would like to set up the ground for you. So many of you probably have seen these informations, but I would like to give you some background. You would see Thailand readiness and I would like to talk about the necessary of transition strategy. Also, EV conversion is a part of how it could be a part of transition strategy, and also the current status of EV conversion. First, why Thailand needs to pay attention with EV. I'm talking about demand side. How EV impact the emission. Second, EV probably related with our government commitment. Our Thailand policy has been announced to the world. Second, as you know, you probably see the problem, the issues of logistics, the world logistics, and this could impact the cost of the fuel. Also, the usage of transportation demand. Also, I'm going to talk about the battery industry. I'm going to talk about that too. First, let's see. Basically, EV is just another alternative, or we need to use it. In Thailand, we are the vehicle industry. We have the information from the emission organization to show you. Before we go to EV, talking about PM 2.5, probably is rarely happen in our country. PM 2.5 occur in the big city, and it's not just come from time to time, but it's a new normal because it's happened in every season and every month. The dust resource 2.5 is from different resources. If you have to pinpoint, we found that 55% the PM 2.5 is from transportation, from the household 11%, from transportation is 54%, and industry from 22%. From the urban area is from their farming, burning, but in the big city is from the transportation area now. 54% is from pickup, 20% from the pickup, and the truck 17%, bus 10%, especially in the big city. We cannot avoid the questions on PM 2.5, especially pickup and trucks, because the numbers shows that the governmental sectors has been collected. This is very significant number that everyone should be aware, because in the past we have known it, but we never been aware of it. But this issue has great impact in our society and quality of people in the city. all of you probably is aware, before COVID pandemic, you probably think it's just seasonal, but since 2019 is the early year, is the year that the school has to be closed because of dust. This impacts the economy and the measure of society. My question is, basically, what kind of vehicle with generating PM 2.5? What is our solution? From the emission office, we know that the type of vehicle impacted 2.5. Though the governmental sector released the law for the modern diesel cars, the conventional cars cannot tackle the Euro 4 standard. For this reason, we have to pinpoint the problem is from diesel cars. If we need to make a pinpoint, we found that the group of vehicles causing the PM problems is from pickup and trucks. The third type is bus. PM.5 management from our transportation section. The three type of transportations has been used diesel with long use of engines. Let me take you to picturize about the technology that impact PM 2.5. We are talking about pickup alone, but last year we have 700,000 pickups, 1.4 pickups is in Bangkok, 1.4 million pickups, 250,000 vehicle is in Nakhon Ratchasima.
As you can see, most truck are very old truck. If you look at the numbers, all the trucks are about over 10 years old. According to the statistic, 60% of the trucks are over 10 years old of the age. If you look at the other provinces, for example, in Chiang Mai, there's a high problems with PM 2.5. As you can see, 2.6 thousand. Well, according to the statistic here, you will see that mostly the problems with the PM 2.5 are mostly come from pickup and trucks. Apart from trucks, we also have buses as well in Bangkok. In Bangkok, there's about 1 million cars in Bangkok. out of 1 million, they're about 1.7 thousand. That's why there's a lot of high problem with the PM 2.5 in Bangkok. So we try to find a solution how we can come across the PM 2.5. There's a Euro 4 law that allow all the drivers to use special type of petrol or gas to reduce the pollution. As you can see, because of the PM 2.5 problems, that's why we try to produce the electronic vehicle in order to prevent PM 2.5. The new upcoming cars, we try to encourage all the cars to use Euro 6 and try to make use of an old car and convert it to a new version of electronic vehicle. The second point that I like to talk about is the carbon neutral, which is compared to PM 2.5, maybe a bit quite far. But we need to think about this point because Thailand and carbon neutral are also an issue at the moment. Because there's something to do and dealing with the government and political issue as well. With the carbon neutral, we also try to reduce the global warming. Let's look at the way to reduce the global warming. At the moment, in 2020, we explore about 450 MT. We try to achieve in 2065, we try to make Thailand to be a net zero GHG emission. We try to achieve the net zero in 2065. These are the graph of Thailand GHG situation and emissions target of NDC. We don't have any strategy just yet to overcome this problem. However, we don't have that much time. In 2030, in only about 8 years to go, we try to achieve the reduction target. We try to achieve 25% reduce. 25 reduction from the present. How we go on about doing to achieve those targets.
industry sector has been released PM2 the most. The third one is the electricity production sector. About 6 million ton CO2 need to be reduced in 2030. In transportation area need to be reduced 41 million ton. How do we strategize to reduce it? Right now we have the issues on CO2. At the same time, I would like to invite you to think about the strategies. There are two strategies. One is to release and to increase. We cannot deny the old vehicles is still important. I will let you jump on my slide to show you what are the implication of the old car and new cars. We have 41 million registrations for cars. Motorcycle is about 21 million, and not motorcycles about 20 millions. Pickup 7 millions. 10 millions is. We have a lot of old cars. The strategy is to emphasize on the new vehicles is great, but the impact of CO2, the proportion of the new and old cannot catch up. We have the power to produce per year 2 million cars. In 2 million cars, we used 1.2 cars. We exported 8 million. In the system, the cost is 20 millions. In 10 years, we'll have half Thai people average, they use their car for 20 years. The commercial vehicles has been used for 25 years. Thai people have a long lifespan of their using their vehicle. So all cars cannot get out from the system. If we need to limit the old car, it's not easy. Please allow me to explain it to you on the impact. So we talk about PM 2.5 and CO2 from private sectors. Transportation section impact has been shown from emission organization. Personal car, if it runs 15,000 kilometers per year, that car will release CO2 about 1.7 tons. If that car runs about 100 kilometers and per year, 200 days, this kind of vehicle has been used daily. If it's per year, it's about 30,000 kilometers. One car would release CO2 to the air. It's a huge struggle for CO2 and PM2. In Thailand, all cars has great numbers for 20 years that has been used. These old cars has low performance. It's consumed too much fuel, too much gas. Half of it, about 10 millions, would impact the cost of the gas. Diesel has been risen about 30 baht per liter, 50 baht for Sohol 95. The trend is rising, and we need to have an evaluation as we are in the war between Ukraine and Russia. It's interrupt the supply chain and logistics. Oil is a part of this kind of conflict. So we could say the change oil so the strategies of price management has to be limited. Our country capital probably is limited too. We need to have an alternative to deal with high price of petrol, also with the strong currency and also the living cost of our population. Talking about food issues, the growth of our country 20 years ago, in 1% of GDP, growth GDP, Thailand needs higher energy for 2.5%. If our country keep growing up and the energy consumption would grow as well, that would be the big problem. It could impact the logistic structure. As we know, the energy resource from Thai Gulf is limited too, so we need to depend on the import oil, and it's also a challenge to import oil because of the price. For this reason, we need to have the final energy consumption. We need to decrease the consumption we have many strategies. When we take a look at the informations, we can tackle with many sectors except transportation. Besides transportation sector, they can tackle it all. We would like to reduce about 30 kiloton. This goal has been very challenging, and we never been able to meet our target. Without electric vehicles, we cannot meet the target. We need to change the type of fuel to electric energy. There we have generation mix that would be a great strategy to manage the energy management, or about 30%. We can tackle that issues because we have enough electricity. Electricity vehicles would play a significant role. As I mentioned, old cars and new cars. Let's see the numbers of how the Thai people use their vehicles.
From 41 million cars, as you can see, the mainly is motorcycle. Well, according to the graph, you can see that per one users, all the driver use one car for 20 years. What's the reason behind this? It's because the income for household are not as much. Therefore, most car users, you have to borrow money from the bank, which that's the reason why. What we try to do is we try to introduce a law or something to get rid of an old car so that we can produce a new car. In consumption, for the income of the household are not as much for each household. That's why people have to be in debt. Well, with the Thailand household debts to GDP are quite high. As you can see, it's constantly increasing from 2014 to 2020. And this also due to COVID-19 as well. That's to make it even worse. With the COVID-19, with the oil prices that keep constantly increasing, so that's the reason why. Well, there's a high demand on that side, you can see. Let's look at the supply side. How we can try to balance between demand and supply. we really want to introduce the electrical vehicle because we want to reduce the emissions with the CO2, with the PM 2.5. We try to introduce the electric vehicle so that we try to help with the Thai people, with the consumer. But the question is, what about the supply? Are we ready? How ready are we? Let's look at the supply side. As we all know, Thailand's strategy position, we try to make sure that Thailand are the major automotive production. But it's very difficult at the moment. Well, so far Thailand quite achieved. It's a great achievement for Thailand, as you will see. When we talk about us, meaning not only Thailand but also our neighbors as well, our neighbor country. If we're talking about trucks, Thailand are the best country to produce trucks really. We are on the 11th place in the world to produce trucks. We export quite a high volume of trucks worldwide. Well, with the motor vehicle, we are on the 5th place.
Hiring, create, clear structures. We have almost 1 million laborers. This is the pyramid of the structures pyramid. 19 companies has the cash flow. On the top of the pyramid is 1.8 trillion baht.
If you look at the pyramid here, the top is the assembler. We have about the revenue 1.8 trillion baht. And the first tier suppliers, the revenue is about 1.7 trillion Thai baht. And at the bottom is the third tier. Most of the suppliers are from Thailand. We have about 6,64 tier supply with the revenue of 1.5 trillion baht. As we try to maintain the domestic demand at the moment. But if you look at the fact, here are the statistics from the Electronic Vehicle Association of Thailand. As we can see, the electronic vehicle, we have the total all of about 11,382 cars, electronic vehicle only, and about 5,000 are motorcycle and around 4,000 are cars. But overall, if you look at the capacity, we have about 2 million capacities to produce electronic cars in Thailand. The question is why we can't encourage the high supply, because when you can see there's a high PM 2.5 at the moment, and the petrol and gas are very expensive, are very high cost, but why we can't produce higher electronic vehicle as we want it to be? This is the problem. Let's look at the part of the manufacturers in Thailand. What kind of parts consist of? We have engines and engine components, transmission, brake systems, steering systems, electronical and body parts. As you can see in the slide here, with the red lines are what we can produce in Thailand. Whereas with the electronic vehicle, we use different parts, completely different. What we try to do is we try to find out how we can develop ourselves to make sure that we can produce all these parts for electrical vehicle. As you can see from the picture here, is the model of an electronic vehicle with the battery pack are quite completely from the normal car, from the petrol car. Well, with the automotive design of the electronic car are quite different, as you can see from the slide here. Like the manufacturing process are quite completely different. Also, the cost structure are different. With the value added ICE, there's not that many complex. But if it's electrical vehicle, the cost of the motor, the control system, the battery
It's about 60%.
are about 60% more expensive. The cost structure of the EV car are different from the normal car. The tier 1 and tier 2 suppliers are not as experienced in producing the electronic vehicle parts. From this slide, you will see the differences, the comparison between the electronic vehicle and the normal petrol car.
The vehicle's performance is important that need to work. There are two components that have to work together well is the motor and controller. Plus power electronic. The most important part is the battery. It must work systematically. They cannot separate from one another. This would tackle the cost of the vehicles and the performance of the vehicles. So supply chain management. So let's talk about supply chain because it's very interesting. The car makers, the motor and controller, and the powertrain, the trend is in-house. So I talk about the three pyramids. There are different parts. Gear 1, 2, 3. As it has made based on the client specifications. I'd like to talk about it from this slide. The issue is the majority of the manufacturers, the controller and motor is in-house. There is limitation and struggles. Onboard structure is 100%. Another part is battery. 3 parts. Inside the battery, there are 3 parts in the battery. Cell pack and small computer that control how the battery pack works. Battery pack and management system is in-house almost 100%. Cell battery is outsourced. The trends of battery cell is in a small outsource. For example, Tesla made giga and battery cell of its own and joined the technology or joint venture with DYD. For example, it's not outsourced alone as before. The supply chain is in the structure of pyramid. To make the model is from the client specification, the capability of the country of EV, and it cannot convert to EV immediately would be impossible. For this reason, we need to tackle our position. For the conventional construction base, if we have to expand our EV is not easy. The government strategy is for the demand and supply the demand is higher, there's orders, but supply is the big question mark. In 2 years after reducing tax and revenue tax, can we produce EV for real? We have to pay attention. If not, we are the net importer or buyer. We will lose our capacity to produce vehicles. The demand has been stimulated on 2.5 CO2, and it will help the food gas price, but it doesn't help with the household debts. Does it create the society in industry or not? What is our solution? For sure, we wish to tackle the quality of life and has less problems. We want to be a net zero. We want to be a carbon neutral. We want to use the new technology. We want Thailand to be the EV-based country. Even we don't have many EV right now, we want investor to invest on EV, and we have transition strategy. Why? We have our car in our system because the car price is high and the household debt is high as well, and the old cars creates emissions. They are all the problems, but we have to change our lens. That the problem that occur, we can change our lens on supply chain. The factor that we can control, because we are under the global context, we are the follower. If you look at the number of our cars in the system, the question is the number of the cars in the system, about 40 million. Can we change the crisis into opportunities? Can it be a tool to release society problem? Can we change the lens? Can we change our perspectives? Use the old car that create problems to be a great opportunity, not a problem. Secondly, instead of focusing on the export, 800,000 units a year, it's ICE. We don't have EV for exports. If we're not ready to export, can we take a look at domestic demand as an asset? The buyer power is to change the asset to become a valuable asset. So we talk about circular economy is to take unvaluable assets to extend, to recycle, not to throw it away, but to recycle it. How can we do that? How can we do it without creating household debts? Additionally, can we get rid of conventional cars? If we do, we need to have a good withdrawal strategies. If we don't know how, our industrial structure is not ready, we need to have the strategies, to have the strategic entry by considering to tackle only some part. So we need to focus on battery and motor and power electronics. The demand of the parts. If the demand of the vehicle's parts is smaller, if we are ready to invest, but to purchase and to hire is not balanced, we need to talk about the transition strategies. Transition strategy is to convert the old cars.
With the transition strategy is to convert the old vehicle and convert it to new vehicle. What we can do is we try to convert the old vehicle to electrical vehicle by trying to find the important parts. This is very important. We have to look at the illegal issues as well. This is very important. It have to combine with the legal law, with the legal registration. Not to produce the new car, but to convert the old vehicle to the new vehicle. So we have to look at the speed per charge, I will explain to you in a bit later on with the industrialize of the EV conversion. If you look at the three segments with trucks, trolley, and cars, as you can see, these three segments, from the graph, it shows that most of the car are old vehicle, are old cars, about 10 years or more, where there are 60%, over 60% are the old cars that more than 10 years. With the trucks, it's about 60%. And over 34% or 20% of the cars are 10 to 15 years old. If we focus on the truck first, with 7 million trucks, there's about 4 million trucks that has over 10 years of age. And we try to convert the old vehicle of the trucks and we can see that the cost will be approximately about 400,000. But if it's a regular cars, there's about 354,000 cars on the road.
This number will be expanded to the root over manufacturers. The converse vehicles would be 0. The braking system would be still left. CO2 would be created in a power plant. A generation mix would be a kind of management and would be able to be tackled better than the cars. So the supply side could be the pain point of EV total throughout the country. Of numbers of right now is 10,000 vehicles, comparing with the 1 million conventional cars. It's so small portion and is not motivated to invest in EV. For this reason, this could create new industry to create battery and motors. It's a new strategic entry. We are not at the position that can tackle all the technologies. How can we become an industrialization? We cannot make it separately or DIY. There are 4 concepts. First, we need to have the specification so that we can tackle the cost. For example, 10 years old of cars, we need to remove the conventional system and replace the EV system. Motor, we need to consider the size and the battery also. The size, we need to think about the supply chain optimization. And this is the supply wish. It's about disruptions of supply chain. Supply risk is significant. We need to pay attention on supply chain. This is significant. We must control the quality, standardize of installation, test, also consider the investment, not too much. The struggles of EV, this industry could last 7 years. Finally, the demand would be decreased. At the same time, as we see the demand, it would impact the foreign pressure that they need EV, but they have no power to buy. So it would impact the export of EV as well. So we need to think about optimization. And we need to ensure the different sectors. We need to think about standard and guideline. If we let the publics make it like DIY, the demand consolidation, we make the demands. We familiarize the demand. We make it into common technical specification. We certify the technologies we used and certify the garage. And we will talk about the governmental support as well. How can we have localization? We need to find a technology partnership. This arena can create industrialization. This number could occur eventually. To manage our time today, the current status, what is the directions of the current status? In commerce, when the user will be able to use. I would like to categorize into 4 terms. EV conversion is not new in Thailand. We have the specification demand. And I would like to categorize it into 4 segments. First is the specification of the car user. For example, pickup, personal car, that's general needs, general specification. Second is the small fleet. Maybe the minibus, red bus, probably lesser than 10 units. The third one is the corporate fleet. It's more than 50 vehicles, 50 units. Last is the governmental agency fleet. Basically, the majority are pickup and vans. So if I talk about corporate fleets, the majority is the logistic transportation or the delivery vehicles. The 5th segment is a classic cars. This is different segment. Probably in the market is not cannot dominate the market yet, but the revenue is high. 4 segments. In Thailand is pretty clear why we have to start from 4 segments, because there are different kind of demands and there are a different supply differences. If we talk about 2 dimensions, the first one is the diversity of the specification target. Second one is the monthly demands. 3, if we mix the 4 segments, we would see the differences. The personal cars or small fleets like minibus, there would be diversity, and the monthly low volume. If it's the 3rd segment, talking about the corporate fleet, is the small amount of diversity but high volume, low variety but high volume. It is
With the 3rd segment, we can provide a big high mass market. We have to considering of production capacity, whereas if looking to mass market, we have to look into investment and risk as well. Because since it's a mass market, there's an opportunity that there's a high chances that will be mistakes. At the same time, with the business model that we use, the manufacturing, whereas from the segment 1 and segment 2, with a private vehicle type and small fleet, there are various. But it's not high demand in every month. On the other hand, business model that support this is the small business owners. So the segment 1 and segment 2 with the small fleet, all the small business owners can see this opportunity. Because there are less risk on the investment. So that's why with the small fleet car, we have to combine the micro business segment which don't have to use the high capital investment, not more than 3 million baht, or not produce more than 30 cars in a month. As you can see, in these 4 different type of segments need 4 different type of business model. Each segment needs different business financial sector. Of course, with the government support, we have to look into different type of segment and different investment level. Because of the time, we have to try to summarize. With the demand, with the drivers, there's a lot of sectors that we have to looking at, the different points. Of course, with the oil price, with the operating cost, household debts, and existing assets, there's a lot of issues that we have to concern about. With the EV conversion, when we look at the EV conversion, of course, we use less capital and less investment than create a new electronic vehicle. Of course, it is less investment. But this all depends on the confidence of the business owner. With the price comparison, as you can see, with the EV conversion and the completely new car, when we look at trucks, why we are interested in to convert old trucks to electrical vehicle trucks? Because it's quite new at the moment. It's a new innovation to produce electronic trucks rather than the electronic vehicle cars. Well, with the EV conversion are very complex. They need a high understanding of the engineering to know there's a complexity. We need to use a highly experienced engineer who are knowledgeable to look into this conversion. Because of the EV conversion, it will give an opportunity for a lot of new careers that are coming up. For example, we can look into the system integrator and installation workshop. The good news is with the new law, we are able to registration with the new electronic vehicle car quite gladly. There's all the documents that needed as listed in the slide. In the near future, of course, we looking to have the testing facilities as well for the electronic vehicle. There should be certified body with engineering, maintenance and service, and charging infrastructure. have to join in the near future. There's many business sectors that we have to work together in the near future. And the last but not least, very important, with the EV conversion, the government have high interested in this EV conversion. Glad to say Thailand will be the main country to produce and to convert the electronic vehicle in 2570 in the next 5 years. We hope that our Thailand will be the main base to create the innovation for the electrical vehicle. And what we aim in 2570, in the next 5 years from now, we want to produce 40,000 electronic vehicles, or approximately we should be able to produce 8,000 electrical vehicle cars in 1 year, or we should be able to produce 660 VC in a month. I must say that we all have to cooperate with each other, with the government and also the public sector, that try to cooperate with each other to make sure that we achieve with this project. I would like to end my session for today. I would like to give all the participants some time for question and answer. If anyone have a question, feel free to raise your ask. Any question from the participants? Please feel free to ask question. Thank you for your presentation. I have a question regarding cost for the trucks. I would like to know the cost for the development for the conversion of the trucks to electronic trucks. I would like to know all the trucks owner who own the truck for over 10 years. What will be the awareness? Why the owner of the truck should pay quite a lot of money to convert their normal trucks to electrical trucks. Also with the charging station as well, the owners have to invest money on the charging station and the convert.
whether the conventional vehicles or EV, if it's the private use, it would be the cost. They will not be able to make the profit like the commercial cars. Whether it's worth of money or not, $400,000 more. If the vehicle runs about 150 kilometers per day for 300 days per year, there is no governmental subsidiary. The real case study is this the real case study for one car? We talk about the oil maintenance, we also talk about PM 2.5, CO2. We can get the return profits in 4 years. This number would become true. We need a significant factor. We need to have the operating plan. We have a good operating plan. We need to have a good operating plan. Because it could tackle the charging point and charging times. A great engine will get a value called kilowatt hour per kilometer. It's very sensitive value. If the engineering value is not correct, overall design will not be worth it. The number that I give is unconditional number. It's about the behavior of charging behavior. It's also the hub unspoken. It could impact the investment. The private use is about 2 criteria. First, oil versus electricity. Second, do you use the same asset? Third, how you use your vehicles. If you use the city car, use it just one person, probably buying a new car is more worthy than using the old car. If you buy a car which you can find an easier maintenance and you can find the parts once your car doesn't work, the cost of ownership is like buying a new EV. Maintenance, going to the center, comparing with having a pickup. The cost of ownership, if you convert your vehicle, you need to take a look at the operating cost as a whole. You need to plan before you buy it. I would like to ask about the governmental policy, how much they would subsidize this conversion. For example, the tax, because I only heard the discount vehicle subsidiary. The subsidized strategy from the government is from energy subsidiary, is to support the transportation manufacturers. 30% would be subsidized, and there are stakeholders who will accept the support already. It's not just a principle, it has been running and ongoing at the moment. As far as the policy, the minister has been having a discussion and agree. In practice, the strategies, the touchable strategies is the policy proposed as a secretary of this committee. We invite the expertise to give us information so that we can write down the strategies. We have two plans of subsidiary. 30% of subsidiary. We propose two dimensions. The first dimension is to give financial support. The second one is to support the people who wish to convert their car, and also the manufacturer who want to convert the car. And the last one is to support the owner of the car. This is in the process. Depends on the size of the battery, and it's ongoing process. The policy is not complete yet. The terms is focusing on the sensitivity to the environment, this slide is on public appealing. You can check it out, and it's on the process. As far as the manufacturer subsidiary is to import the body parts, is as same as to support the new cars. They reduce the tax and registration. It's an ongoing process and having a discussion whether in financial and informative users, infrastructure and charging stations, they are on the ongoing of presenting a proposal.
Okay, that's the end of the session. If you have any more further question, please write your question through our open line chat application form. Many thanks for the guest speaker for today, and many thanks for all the participations here. Many thanks.